Hello, good people. As promised, a little rough around the edges. Hope you're doing well. It's been a couple weeks since I've been on the stream. I took off last week, not to mourn our loss of our dear friend Brian, who has moved on to another DevRel gig. Well, maybe partially to mourn Brian moving on, but mostly to celebrate my birthday. I'm here in central Ohio, where it is snowy in winter, and we went down to a cool little part of southern Ohio called Hocking Hills, which, if you don't know much about Ohio, it was sort of flattened by a glacier a few million years ago. And so when you think of Ohio, you tend to think of flat, but there's some really interesting kind of rolling geography down on the southern part. Reminds me a little bit more of like what you think of from Kentucky or Tennessee. It was neat. I got to see some limestone caves and do some hiking and get recharged. And now I'm back for our new, at least for now, solo version of our Algolia DevChat live stream. So obviously I've got a lot more space to fill now that I'm just a single voice and not a conversation, which means, of course, I would love to have comments from all of you. Would definitely love for you folks to chime in. If you've got something cool you're working on, feel free to chime in on the chat with it. If you are interested in maybe chatting with me live, reach out over the old Twitter or or even here. Just kind of hit me up, and maybe we can find something cool to talk about, look at together. So yeah. So I don't have a lot planned for today. There are a couple things that I kind of wanted to chat about. There's a project that I've been working on for an upcoming blog post. I thought maybe I might show some code from that. Not really a lot of news to start out with. I guess one piece of news, 2 weeks ago, last time we were doing a live stream, Brian and I were working based on a blog post by a gentleman named Jacob, who was kind of showing off how to integrate Algolia with Nuxt 3 and building out some sort of Nuxt style components that kind of bridge interactions between Nuxt and Algolia on the back end. And one kind of piece of that we were talking about was that the obvious next step, both the blog post said this and we kind of said it on stream, would be to start incorporating Vue Instant Search, which is our Algolia library with sort of widgets specific to Vue, to build out kind of a fun front end to go along with that. One of the things that sort of came up since then is that those Vue components weren't necessarily 100% ready for Nuxt 3. So just kind of a follow-up to that. There is actually an open issue on this. So hopefully that's showing. Let's see. Shift. I'm learning. Let's see if I can get this to come up here. Shift 5. Oh, probably Shift F5. Does that work? Let's see. How do I get to... Oh, here we go. Add to stream. There we go. Look at that. Now I'm sharing a screen. That's pretty awesome. So anyway, so this is the open issue. It looks like there are some issues kind of using Vue Instant Search with Nuxt 3 right now, but those are picked up, and it looks like they're scheduled for a fix in February. So if you are someone who's in that Nuxt 3, Vue 3 ecosystem, be looking for this update. Maybe drop an old watch on this particular issue, 1098 over on Vue Instant Search. And that's kind of all I have to say about Vue and Nuxt for now. Let's see. Next thing I kind of wanted to talk about, there is a individual who has been visiting our Twitter stream, the Algolia Twitter stream, Jean-Li. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, Jean-Li. Jean-Li is doing 100 days of code, I believe, and has been working on this kind of cool e-commerce shop, and has been kind of dropping questions here every now and then over on our Twitter feed. First thing is we kind of mention to Jean-Lee that we do have a Algolia discourse community, discourse.algolia.com. So that's another great place if you have a question. Come on over there, sign up. You can drop your questions there. I'm usually hanging out, keeping an eye on things. There are several community members that are good for answering some questions as well. So that's kind of the first piece that I wanted to take out of this Twitter thread is always come by, hang out with us on Discourse, say hi in the forums, ask your questions, and we're glad to get to them. Obviously, if you have support's a big source of help too, but for community answers, that's kind of a good place to go. Anyway, so Jean-Lee in particular was saying here that no dumb questions, first of all. How to store value or refinement list. I think we got past that one. It looks like it's some issues around the modal. So he's saying, thank you for following me, find this community. When you filter the critique, you get the results, but when you try to choose the modal, the state changes back to the initial. So let's see. So looking at his video, or their video, I should say. So we're picking a price. It's filtering. Okay, so let's take a peek. I think there was I thought I saw there was a sandbox, code sandbox to go with this. So we'll take a look at that as well. Yeah, so this, I've actually got it up right here. So let's see. So he's saying that you can pick a price here. And then let's see what we're supposed to do here. So go to filters, choose the price, see results. Okay, and kind of goes back and forth. Let's see. So I'm not quite seeing. Let's see, maybe we have to bring out. We'll do a refresh here. Okay, a little more in here now. So let's see. So we say price that. I'm not seeing the modal. When you filter the critique, get the result, but when you try to close the modal, the state changes to the initial. Okay, so I see, not seeing that in the code sandbox. Can't figure out how to pop up the modal here. Let's see, get a little closer. So you can choose a vendor here. We've got a few different facets. Cat paw. But I don't have a modal coming up. So Jean-Lee, I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on this on my side. If there's something I'm doing wrong to bring this modal up, let me know. I'll respond to you on the Twitter thread for now. But I am not seeing what you are seeing, which makes it hard to sort of identify what the problem might be. So, but I do like this kind of this design that you're doing. I love what you're going for here with the sort of the facets, the facet filters across the top rather than the left side. Kind of makes for a nice mobile experience. Maybe is that what's going on here? Maybe I need to switch to mobile. Let's see. I'm trying to run for the code sandbox. Is there? Okay, there we go. Let's see. Do a refresh here. So now we're getting these drop downs. Looks like the modals aren't quite working in the code sandbox here. Violation. Screens visible in development. Check the other one here. Let's try this other drop down. Featured. Okay, so we can change the sort order. I'm assuming this is probably toggling between indices on the backside. Bracelet high. Let's see. We want the filter icon, search client. Okay, so that's for search results. Product price. Okay, cool. Yeah. So looks like, yeah, we're just switching back and forth between our two indices there, which makes sense. So we've got a different sort order. So hopefully those are virtual replicas. But then when I'm trying to use this modal, it is just not working for me. Check the render method of filter modal. Now, for those who don't know me and are used to watching the stream and seeing fantastic acts of front-end acrobatics, I've got bad news, which is that's all Brian. Brian is definitely was our front-end aficionado. I'm more of a back-end guy. So you're going to see me struggling a lot more looking at front-end code, trying to kind of understand the different pieces of it. And, oh, hey, Brian, I see you out there. You were definitely into the front-end acrobatics. So you're going to see a lot more kind of stumbling here because front-end is not my area of expertise. But I'm going to take a shot at this. We're going to take a look at kind of what Jean-Lee has kind of put together here and see if we can suss it out. And if not, then we got other things we can move on to, but I at least want to take a peek at it because I thought it was kind of cool. So let's see. Hey, no problem. I appreciate lurkers. It's good to have folks here. I see we got a few folks kind of lurking out there. You can feel free to say hey out in the comments if you want. Again, you can also feel free to just put a bunch of like laughing face emojis as you see me stumble through this code. But I figure it's the only way for me to learn, right? Yeah, for me, I'm kind of I've been around, done a few different things, but honestly, the last time I built like real web applications with front ends was like lots of Perl and CGI. I mean, it's really been a long time. So I've done some JavaScript. It's definitely not my language of my first language. And a lot of kind of what I've tended to do has been more sort of backend stuff, cloud native stuff, API driven stuff. But I'm eager to learn this. So I'm going to stumble around. If you all have guidance for me, always feel free to jump in with it as well. Let's see. What does this look like? Man, I can't see those. Oh, I see. Little Java guy. Old school Java guy. Love it. Cool. Okay, so where were we? Oh, yeah, so we were looking to try and figure out why we're getting an invariant violation on this filter modal. Let's take a look. Okay, so I've got a filter icon. And then vendor price. This is all the stuff that's supposed to show up there. And we've got an M query. Not a jQuery, an M query. Let's see here. Click. Okay. Well, this is interesting. It's clear refinements based on the problem you we're describing generally. I wonder if this is where we're going to start finding some kind of interesting contextual stuff. Let's see here. Here's our filter modal. UI React. Pulling in our refinement list. And the exact error that we're getting. Element type is invalid, expected a string for built-in component, or class function for composite component, but got an object. Okay. Likely you forgot to export your component from the file it's defined in. Oh. The filter modal. So export, there's your function filter modal. It looks like somehow that's not getting up into the main part of it. So this is starting to feel, this is probably not the same problem that you're seeing, right? Because obviously your modal is working, but it looks like there might be some issues here in this code sandbox. And as I said, I'm not like a super React person, so I'm gonna pause here and we're gonna go back and maybe we can work together to kind of figure out what might be going on with this and why your modal isn't kind of getting up there. But also, I think more importantly is let's get past that so that we can figure out what the heck's going on with those filters and why those keep dropping off when the modal drops off. But I'm wondering if it's somewhere in here, right? With this clear filters modal. That's just something like, you know, my gut would be, that would be the first place I would start taking a look. Okay, but I'm going to step out of this for now. And I'll put a comment here on the thread a little bit later. If any of you have anything that you think might be useful or helpful for Jean-Lee on this one, hopefully we can get him to move this conversation over to the forums. I'm sorry. I'm saying him. I should say her, I believe. But I apologize. But anyway, hopefully we can get the conversation over into the forums. And if not, if you find this thread and you want to chime in, feel free. Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Jean-Lee, for sharing that with us. The other thing that I've been working on, just kind of scratching the surface on, kind of comes up with a couple of different posts that I've seen over the course of the last couple of months. This one goes back to October. And this was someone actually in the Algolia community that was posting about Geosearch. So if you didn't know, alongside sort of the as you type search that Algolia is known for, we do actually have some Geosearch capabilities. So you can actually put geolocation data into your records, and you can do searches around that geolocation data using polygons, rectangles, you know, radius, kind of all the things that you would expect from geographic search. And this is kind of an interesting question that came up that's been sitting in the back of my head for a while, which essentially is around kind of using the same sort of layered search approach or multi-index search approach for geo that a lot of folks do for text search or faceted search, right? So the concept here is that you have a search context where there might be specific geographic locations that you would want to show in the results, right? Maybe branches that are in close proximity to an address. But then there also might be resources that you want to show based on a less granular, more coarse location, right? For instance, the appropriate state. So here in Ohio, maybe there would be something that would be close to my house, but also there could be potentially resources that are within the state of Ohio that might be useful to me as well. So this is kind of what I've been thinking about. Like, what can we do to kind of build out this three-tiered approach to geographic search? And so I kind of was like spitballing some stuff. Again, this is way back in October, but I was wondering if maybe like, you know, if there's possibility of injecting a state geocode, right? So essentially what you would do is you would build out sort of a record that had a polygon in it that sort of represented the state of Ohio. Therefore, the geographic boundary, it would include that. That was kind of one approach I thought about. Unfortunately, as I kind of went in and started looking at Algolia's geo capabilities, we do support the idea of having like multiple locations within a record. So you could have sort of multiple geographic pins, say across the state or something like that. but you can't actually draw like a polygon. You can't actually say like this is a large area that represents this record. So the way that I kind of conveyed it here doesn't really work with Algolia search. Now, like I said, you can have sort of multiple pins. So another way to do it would be potentially to sort of, place multiple pins around a state all tied to the same record. That's sort of a representative, again, of that same sort of non-geographic specific agency or resource. But there's a couple of issues with that as well. One being that you're going to end up with like sort of a weird abstracted pin that doesn't necessarily, actually show a location, which could be confusing to the end user. And the other thing is that from what I can tell, kind of looking at the search capabilities here, and particularly around our instance search libraries, they don't actually handle multiple locations right now. So if I go in, we take a look. So we'll go into like our React instance search. And let's see, where's the geo in here? I think there's some map Geosearch. Here we go. Maybe, we got to go click here. Cool. So yeah, so this is essentially, this is the Geosearch widget that we include as part of our instance search library, right? So instance search is a bunch of different sort of off-the-shelf widgets that you can put directly into your front end that tie into an Algolia backend. And the way we've sort of implemented our Geosearch widget is to have sort of this direct integration with Google Maps, but then also the ability to kind of use other sources of truth if you need to. So you can see like we've got this Google Maps loader kind of baked right into instance search that'll go ahead and set up your map, set up the connection to the backend API, and then allow you to sort of very easily start mapping search results onto it if they've got geocode data. And then if you're not using Google Maps, there's this connect Geosearch component that then you can use to go and connect sort of other sources of truth and still use sort of the same UI model, but then you might have to kind of build out your own connection for the backend source if it's like Open Maps or something like that. But the one thing I saw in here is that I wish I could remember if it was in here or in the actual record information. So yeah, so the way we do it, the way we store that information is in this geoloc attribute. So that needs to be part of your record. And there it is. The feature is currently incompatible with multiple values in the geoloc attribute. For example, a restaurant with multiple locations. And so we recommend actually splitting that out. So yeah, because of that limitation in instance search, I kind of, and the fact that like you really don't want these weird phantom pins on your map, I kind of steered away from doing it this way as well. So the approach I'm kind of thinking about now is to do more of a layered approach where we have multiple indices, like one with geodata and then one with more of like the national and statewide agencies or resources, and then thinking about a way to sort of layer those in sort of a search results list while also kind of having the geographic information on a map. And so I've kind of just started playing around with different ways to do that. The first thing I needed to do in order to kind of get there was to start thinking about, well, first I needed an index, right, with some geo information in it. And if you kind of seen the sort of typical Algolia examples, the geo example that we tend to use is this one, which is, this is our Geosearch UI. So this is actually using that well, the Geosearch widget, right? So essentially, this is a map that's being initialized via the widget. So it's going out, it's passing our API credential to the Google Maps API. It's initializing the map, and then it's starting to populate it with our search results here. And the backend database for this is airports. So you can see each of these airports has sort of its location with geo information, and you can kind of zoom in and you can get sort of ones close by. You can build out this polygon, and you can kind of get a bunch of different ones within the polygon. Hi, Juga. OpenStreetMap importer lately. Oh, cool. Right on. Yeah. So geo is definitely it's definitely an area that I feel like we don't touch on as much in the Algolia space, which is why I kind of wanted to get my hands dirty with it. It would be really kind of interesting to use like OpenStreetMap or something other than Google. Obviously, like because we have this really nice integration with Google, it's the lazy person's approach to it. But I would definitely love to kind of take some of these examples and try and swap in some other backends to kind of see what can be done with it. There's an interesting series of blog posts. I should have had them up. Oh, Brian was so good about this. I should be dropping some stuff in here. This is the demo I'm looking at. I'll drop the link in the chat here. So yeah, so that's the airport demo that I'm looking at. But also there was a series of Algolia blog posts. Let me get to our blog about store locators that I think uses OpenMap on the back end. So let me see what I can find here. Lots of interesting stuff here. There's our coding challenge, which we're finally done talking about. Let's see, let's look for store locator. Yeah, so building a store locator. Oh, this is using Mapbox. So it's not using the Open Maps, it's using Mapbox. But this is kind of building on top of that same connector that I was talking about, right? So if you come in here, the sort of that last piece of it. This connect Geosearch here. I wonder if we can actually find that piece of code in this blog. Let's see. I wish this showed you. Oh, that's part one here. Okay, part one here. This might just be the framework stuff. We might not actually get into the mapping here. Yeah, so this is just kind of creating the basic React episode. Okay, here we go. Adding Geosearch. Okay, so displaying stores on a map using Mapbox. And he's kind of talking about a bunch of different map providers here. We don't talk about open maps here. Here, I'll drop a link into this too. That's what I'm looking at now. Let's see if we can find that connector. Here we go. Connect Geosearch connector. No. Does he actually show building that out? Let's see here. There's React map component, zoom control. So I don't see the connector in here. It looks like there might be an abstraction on top of this. Creating a Mapbox account. Yeah, so I'm not seeing where they are using this, where they're using the connector piece of it. Using Krakow. Oh, I see. This isn't added in the connector yet. Okay, so this is where the connector comes in. So we pull it in. Map component. And then within there, we've got our hits. So basically what it does is it looks like it's injecting into our existing map component the hit information. And then you can kind of take that and build out markers using the appropriate methods for whatever underlying mapping system you're using. So this is kind of cool. And I'm sure this could probably be fairly easy swapped over to as a model for open maps or some other kind of piece to it. Yeah, so there's some kind of interesting stuff we could potentially do in here too. So I might save this one for a rainy day and get back to it. For now, because as you'll see, as I kind of show off some of the code I'm working on, I'm kind of having enough trouble even with just the Google Maps stuff. So the last thing I want to do is kind of pull in another provider. But this would be a cool place to take it kind of after we get Google Maps up and running. So anyway, so you can see for this, they were using the sort of Spencer and Williams store locator, and I couldn't find that index either. And I didn't want to use the airport one because I couldn't think of kind of a use case where you would be looking for an airport or sort of a national resource. Plus, I'm kind of bored with this data set, honestly. So what I did is I started poking around and I went looking for sort of just an anonymous or sort of an abstracted address database that I could kind of use instead. And I found, let me see in my utilities, where's my scripts directory here? Let's see here. Here we go. So yeah, I found sort of this GitHub repo with a list of scrubbed addresses. Basically, it has like real, actual physical addresses with sort of all of the identifying information scrubbed out of them. Let's see if I can find where I got it from. So yes, it's this one here. Sorry for the slow load. My laptop is it's churning on the streaming, that's for sure. So this is kind of where I started off, and I got this nice abstracted data here. And you can go, there's like a group of 100, you can kind of get larger groups, and I think the full list is about 3,000 addresses. Yep, 3,220. And so basically these are like real addresses across the US. And what I did was I kind of took that information. Here, let's look at one of the small ones just to kind of see what they look like. So you can see each of these has like street address and then this latitude and longitude. And so obviously I needed to massage this data to kind of fit the structure that Algolia likes, which is that underscore geoloc for the latitude and longitude information. And then the rest of it, we don't really care about, but we do need it kind of nicely flattened out. And I took the opportunity while I was kind of normalizing the data to go ahead and sort of expand it a little. So I gave each one kind of this randomized agency name. So the concept here is something like you're looking for some sort of service agency, and there might be like a local agency that you can go to, like a storefront that you could actually go to, but then there might actually be, statewide or national agencies that you would layer in as well. So that's kind of how I built this data set. And then, like I said, it kind of goes and it throws all this other random information in as well. It normalizes it, right? So I've got my geoloc now with my latitude and longitude in it, and then everything else kind of more or less stays the same. and then I inject in this name as well. And then the other thing I kind of did, just because I thought it might be fun to play with later, is I added this attribute called preferred, right? So the concept here being that down the line, once we actually put this into an index and we start serving it, there might actually be, say, agencies that maybe are advertisers with us, or have some sort of like credential where we would want them to come up first. So I have this concept of preferred agencies, and I kind of randomly pick. It's a 1 in 10 chance, basically, whether or not an agency is going to be a preferred one. And then they get a little preferred on their name too, just so it shows up in the listing as well. So when I go ahead and run this script against my my data source, I end up with this. Let's see, address records JSON. Is it the? Yeah, so you can see like these are each of my records. Let's see if I can pretty that up. Large file is killing my VS Code. So maybe we're not going to pretty it up there. Oh, there we go. Hey, look at it. It's beautiful. That's not right, though. That's my settings file. Why would you pretty that up instead? Anyway, let's go take a look at the actual index. It's probably nicer to see here anyway. Oh, VS Code. VS Code's like, you should never have opened that JSON file. You knew it had 3,000 records in it. Why would you do that to yourself? Let's see if I can close it back down. But you can kind of see here while it's before it pops back over to the other side. So this is my woolly xanthic ladybird agency that is not preferred. This is my whiny xanthic zebra agency, not preferred either. That one's in California. So we can search for just our preferred agencies. There's 300, so it's about a tenth of them. Zippy Zucchini Capybara is definitely oh no, it's not. Zippy Violet Fish is, though. So here's Zippy Violet Fish. So again, real world addresses tied to obviously fictional agencies here. So I thought this would be kind of a cool sort of baseline data source to kind of start playing with. And if this is something that you think would be useful for demos on your side too, be glad to pop this up into a repo on its own. For now, I just kind of have the script that I used to generate it in the JSON file, which we're going to close now. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, little laptop. There we go. Goodbye to you. So yeah, we're going to close that. And we're going to close Peacock here too. I'm not sure why my Peacock settings are open here. Cool. Yeah, I'll be glad to share those if that's something that would be useful. Just because I was really struggling to find like really good sort of fictional but accurate addresses that we could kind of use for the project. So anyway, the next thing I did is I took them and I took that kind of address file that I had. Obviously, I built an index for it. And then I started kind of playing around with trying to build out a UI for it, which I think might be broken right now, but let's see if we can get this to work. I might have to do a little bit of cleanup on this code to get it up and running. Okay, so we got what I would give for 8 more gigs of RAM. Oh, in honor of Brian, who is always running a node server somewhere, we're going to run on a different port. And that probably explains why I'm running so slow too. So let's see what we get here. 3001. Now again, so I was fiddling with this, and I'll explain what's been going on with it in a second here. Yeah, okay, so it's not loading here. And SSL supported. Well, that's crashing in a different way than I was expecting it to. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to go and we're going to shut down the other one. Maybe. I think this is the one that's running. Yep. So basically, bottom line is I started by doing just exactly what you were seeing earlier, which is essentially a Google Map that I had these fake agencies sort of visible on. I don't think you can use the Mode Builder to do a geo yet. Or at least I haven't tried. So I do want to kind of this off if I can. But basically what's going on here, just while this is kind of struggling along, is the map sort of style with, dropping a pin and sort of showing locations near it works really well if you're just doing pure geo data, right? Because you drop a pin, you get the latitude and longitude, you draw a circle around it, you find records within your indices that match, or your index that match, drop those records on the map, and you're off to the races. But obviously, in my case, I want to also be able to layer in that sort of state or national data as well, which means that I need a little bit more information than just the geo. And so what I started trying to do here with Agency Finder form is I started playing with the Places API, the Google Places API, to start kind of building out, essentially all of the ability to kind of identify the more coarse grain information about the address, right? Like what state, zip code, things like that. So that then I can do searches along those axes along with the Geosearch on the map. But the problem was when I put my Agency Finder form onto the same application as my my map, sort of my pure geolocation information, I started to have some struggles between the API connections that Instant Search was building for me and the connections that I was building myself for my my form. And so I kind of went off and I started building the form on its own, but I never went back and fixed this piece here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. It's out. That's an old API key anyway. We'll pull that out of there. And then we're going to pull the form out of my application too. Let's see, Agency Finder form. Okay, let me see where I actually initialize it to. Oof, slow, slow, slow. Okay. So what I've got here, if this does work, you can see I'm actually, I've got a search box, and then I'm using that Google Maps loader widget to actually do all of my initialization of the map for me. So I just drop it my API key, and it goes off to the races. It goes ahead and initializes the map. I can drop in my controls. and I can drop in my markers. I can either use this element to essentially use just like a generic marker, or I can build custom markers, which is what I've done sort of in previous projects. If you saw my blog post around essentially COVID case information, it was a geolocation around COVID case information using the Johns Hopkins data. For that, I was using a custom marker where I was actually showing sort of the case numbers in each county on the map directly. So in this case, we're just going to do pins. So let's see if taking that out actually allows this to run, which would be super cool and exciting, and requires you to save your app.js, doesn't it? Yeah, Juka. So faceted search is definitely core to sort of what Algolia does. If you're not super familiar with Algolia as a search service, the way we do things and sort of what we gear ourselves towards is sort of blazing fast interactive search, right? So the concept is you build your index, you put your data in it, you put all your records in JSON format, and then you sort of ahead of time, you give us a bunch of information about what we should do with that index, what order it should be sorted in, what attribute obviously it should be sorted against, which attributes should serve as facets, right? So which ones would you want to be able to pop up colors or states or price points or whatever, whichever sort of pieces of information that you want to be filterable as facets, and which ones you want to display and which ones you want to be searchable. And then we go and we do all of the pre-indexing of the data. So based on that configuration, all of those indices are already built, ready to go. So when your first user comes in and does a query against that index, it's going to be lightning fast because it's already been sort of indexed exactly as you need it to be. So if you were on earlier when we were showing what Jean-Lee was working on, Jean-Lee had an app where they were showing ascending and descending price order for their records. And that actually, the way we handle that is we have multiple configurations. So you create virtual replicas of your data with different index configurations, and then we index that data in different ways. And then you just reference the different index names to kind of get that particular index. So faceting is incredibly important and incredibly useful in the Algolia world. You're going to find that we use facets quite a bit for a lot of different things. But getting back to sort of the Geosearch, so here we are. I've got my geo component. I've got my Google map here, and hopefully what'll be happening is based on the search criteria against my index, which I provide to instant search here. Right, that's my index name. We'll be able to start searching against those fake agencies. So the question is, let me check one other thing. This might be the other thing that's happening. I made the mistake of installing Node 17, and it has been causing me nothing but trouble with some of this instant search stuff. I'm going to go back to Node 16, my safe space here, and see if that helps too. Let's see, well, that's my agency finder. That's not what we want. Unless if I've been using the wrong one this whole time. Nope. There we go. All right. Let's see if my map comes up here. So what was typical real world showcase is the question from Juka. So before I worked for Algolia, I actually worked in InsurTech. And InsurTech is very much a state by state, or insurance is a state by state commodity in the US. So everything kind of falls to the state. So there would be situations where maybe you might have a brick and mortar provider, like an old school insurance agency, where you go in and you'd sit down across the desk from an agent and you talk to them. But obviously, like within the InsurTech space, there are also sort of these online insurance carriers now. but those carriers, those online agencies, I'm sorry, not carriers, are licensed in individual states as well. So it's very likely that you would be looking for, say, commercial insurance for your business. You might find a couple of agencies that are local to you that sort of work within the, within your geographic area. Those would be the folks that are like, putting the ads on the backs of bus benches and things like that. But then there might also be online providers that would be in that mix as well, that might not have a brick and mortar location, just a website. So that would be a use case. And that was kind of what was in the back of my head as I was building out this demo. So you can see here, this is just the very, very, very basic. Literally, all I've done is just drop these few lines of code in here with Instant Search. I guess I could have coded this live, but I'm kind of glad I didn't, considering how slow my box is going today. But I've got my search box widget up here at the top, where I can do a typey search. So if I knew how to spell capybara, because we know that's one of the words that we use, let's try it. Capybara. Well, there's crappy. I don't think we got a crappy one. That's funny. Capybara. Okay, and you can see, so again, for folks that are newer to Algolia, some of the things that I got right out of the box here is some typo correction, right? So I spelled capybara with 2 P's, but that didn't stop Algolia from finding our capybara records here. So we've got our Squirrely Rust capybara agency here in Connecticut. We've got our Stuffy Mustard capybara agency here in Governor Bridge Road in Maryland. But I can also kind of go here on the map itself. I can zoom in. Looks like there's no capybara agencies here in Ohio, but there is one down here in Nashville. So that's kind of cool. So I'm kind of using a mix of just a straight up search here. Turtle, any turtles here? Sorry, I'm just kind of reading. Juka saying, interesting. I heard so far a niche business called dynamic insurance might be big quite soon. It's more real one-time small payment insurance for occasional like event individual. Yeah. So what you're talking about there, Juka, with the dynamic insurance. So this is tangential to what we're working on, but it's a good time to give my laptop a second to catch up. So that has a lot to do with like the gig economy, right? So say you're driving for one of these driving services like Uber or Lyft, and maybe you're required to carry commercial driver's insurance. There are folks out there that are building out insurance products that are essentially policies that are metered that you can turn on and off. So you only have it on essentially when you're driving commercially, and then you can turn it off when you're done. And then you pay a metered price rather than a monthly price for it. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting use case where you get these sort of online providers that are doing these kind of new and creative ways of handling insurance. And it's certainly something that you'd probably want in the mix, even if they don't necessarily have a shop that you can go up to, on Main Street. So yeah, so here we are. We're doing a search for turtle. Nothing in Nashville. We got some in Louisville here. But you can see basically this stuff is kind of coming up. And this just has the information here. I'm not currently showing like things like the preferred status. The cool thing I could do is potentially do like a custom marker for preferred status, or even just show it down here in the display. Although obviously, since it's a true or false, you probably want to do something with like a graphic as opposed to just a straight up. But the next piece, like I said, what I think is really interesting to do here, this was really just to kind of get some data that I can play with. What I want to do next, and maybe not today because we're kind of running out of time, but just kind of give you a preview for sort of where my brain is headed next, is you can see here, I've got this bounding box. I've got the ability to kind of zoom on this map, but I also have this ability to say around a location, and I can click and say, I want to set my map to New York, or I want to set my map to London, or I want to set my map to my IP address. So you can see here I am in Central Ohio. So that's the kind of the next piece that I want to do. But rather than have it be sort of a link based on my IP address, I want it to be based on the address that I type in. And So that's kind of where I'm building out this other component, which I'll show now, just like I said, using the places to give me that sort of, you start typing an address and it shows you the and the rest of it for you. Let's see here. So bring this one up. Okay, so this is the other piece I'm kind of working on, which is, again, kind of taking, oh, maybe, here, close that one down. Let's see if this loads. So this is my agency finder form. So the thought here is I could put in an address, put in like, oh, come on, you little guy. So here you go. So this is like that classic, you can see I'm using the Places API to just go ahead and pre-populate this with information based on the Google Places API. So I can click that and then it populates this. And so my next step is I want to take this form and I want to take it so that once this New York populates here, we can then drop a pin on the map, recenter it there, and start showing the agencies. And then, of course, the next piece of it would be to go and retrieve the state-based agencies as well and layer those in on top of that. So that's kind of where I am. I've got a bunch of little pieces. I've got the foundational components of it. And then the next piece is going to be kind of stitching all of those pieces together. So that's kind of what to look forward to next time. And this just kind of tangentially, this doesn't have much to do with Algolia, but this I actually built, this is using React components on top of the Places API. And to do that one, let me see, I want to show you, I had a file here, maybe I dropped it in the source. Oh, shoot. I'll have to find it. I had, basically this was based on a another blog post. It was a really good one too that talked about using the Places API with React components. And let me see, I don't know if I've got it easily in my history, but I really want to share it too because I thought it was pretty good. Come on, little laptop, you can do it. Here it is, Tracy Lum. So I'll drop this in the chat too, but I thought this was kind of cool. It's dated, I see it's from 2017, so it's probably like way old school, like Chuck, never do that again. But it really helped me out with kind of trying to understand kind of how to put all these different pieces together. The Google API examples tend to be sort of pure JavaScript examples. And so since I started off in this React world, I really wanted to try and stay there as much as possible. If there's a better way to do this, obviously let me know. But you can obviously see this is kind of where this came from. And it really kind of helped me put these pieces together. The one challenge that I'm having right now is that in order to do this, obviously Google has their sort of helper libraries that they require. And so when I put that kind of directly into my HTML file to load in their script, it was conflicting with the load in that's actually happening within the instance search. So I got to work that out. I got to figure out how to kind of contextualize those and make sure that I can kind of keep both components working happily together. But that's going to be sort of for another day at this point. As far as kind of what's coming up next, not really a lot super exciting to talk about right now, other than I'll be back here next Tuesday, kind of chopping away at this Geosearch stuff. We'll take another look at the Jean Lee stuff if we can get that code sandbox up and running. And if you have anything like that, any questions or things that you kind of want to work on, feel free to show up, drop them in the chat. We can take a peek at them. Or, I'm on Twitter. You can see I'm Chuck M on Twitter. Also over on the discourse forums. Drop them any of those places, and maybe we can pick them up here and kind of play around with them a little bit. And I've got some ideas for some other kind of interesting things to do on the back end. Also, since I've lost my front end person, I'm really trying to kind of get myself up to speed on that. So you might start seeing me do a few kind of bite-sized chunks on kind of building up a front end piece by piece. Some of it obviously with the Algolia components, some of it just kind of learning what y'all do these days, since it's been a while since I've done it myself. But anyway, appreciate you hanging around, and I will see you next time. Take care.